So to work on this assignment, what you're going to do is complete each of these areas here, and it kind of explains what I want you to do in each one. But this is all about experimenting with colors and learning how different color mixtures will give you different effects and whatnot. The first thing we're going to talk about is mixing greens. If you notice on all the colors that I've given you, I've only given you one shade of green. Okay, this is called a phthalo green, but I sometimes refer to it as a toxic green because it's incredibly strong. In fact, I hardly ever use it because it's so strong. When you use it in a landscape painting, it looks very artificial, very plastic. So it kind of makes your painting look like everything's glowing from nuclear waste or something. So I call it the toxic green. I don't use it very often, but it's there. You can get other shades of green, but the greens tend to be really expensive. The minerals that they use to make some greens are about twice the price of what the other paints. So, but I find it actually better, so I don't buy them for the students, but I actually find it better to mix your own greens. And so in this little table here, we're going to practice mixing a couple different shades of green. Now, so on this row here, we're going to mix lemon yellow with a cerulean blue. And if you're not sure which one's lemon yellow, go to your little table over here and you'll see that lemon yellow is the one that looks like this, which is this color right here. Okay, the cerulean blue is this kind of lighter blue-green color, which is this one right here. So our first color, we're going to mix those two together. Now, when you're mixing colors, just kind of a keep in mind type thing, is your lighter colors, which are going to be these, are not as strong as your darker colors, such as these over here. Okay, meaning I can take this entire scoop of yellow and add a tiny bit of blue and get a medium shade of green. So it's not a 50-to-50 ratio. When you're mixing black and white paints, black is much stronger than white. And so if you want like an in-between shade of green, you have to use a lot of yellow to just a little bit of blue. So when you're mixing colors, I like to start off with my weaker or lighter colors and then add the darker colors to it. So I'm going to start off and scoop up a little bit of the lemon yellow and just get a little bit, just that much on my brush of the blue, and you can see how much that's going to affect all this pile of paint right here. Okay. Now, if you want a nice, good, saturated green, then this is the one you want to use. So then you're going to go and paint this whole square in with just this shade of green. Now, I won't do the whole thing just for the sake of time, but yeah, you're going to paint this whole thing in with that color right there. Okay. The next color you're going to use is I'm going to mix my lemon yellow again with a different kind of blue. It's called your cobalt blue. Okay, the cobalt, you have two darker shades of blue. The darkest one is your ultramarine blue. The cobalt blue is the one that's just a little bit lighter than that. It's a little hard to see, but there is a difference when you mix those together. So clean your brush out, pick up some of this this blue here, and I'm going to take the rest of this green and mix these together. And you'll see you also get a different kind of green with this mixture here as well. Okay, anyway, you're going to paint, try to stay in the lines, try to get it even, thick coverage. Okay, I'm not adding much water at all to this at all. In fact, I haven't added any water, but you're going to paint that whole square in with that. Okay, the next section you're going to use, or you're going to complete, is we're going to use our cadmium yellow. Okay, now your cadmium yellow is this one right here. Okay, so scoop up just a little bit of that, and we'll do the same thing. Okay, I'm going to take half of it and mix it with the cerulean blue, and you'll see you'll get this really, it almost looks like a brown. When you use it in certain areas, it does look much more greenish, and so these are much more of a muted, very low intense greens when you use the cadmium yellow. Reminds me of fall. When I'm doing a fall painting or a desert painting, then I'll use lots of cadmium yellow. If I'm doing a summer or spring painting, I use lots of lemon yellow. Okay, now clean my brush out, do the same thing, pick up some of this cobalt blue. Oops, got a little too much. Let's come over here to this side. There we go. And make a shade of green with this cobalt blue and the cadmium yellow. And then paint this area in. Okay, paint the whole thing. I'm not going to paint the whole thing in just for time. So when it's done, it's going to look all nice and pretty like this. Okay, so I want you to color in all the way, even though I didn't, just for the sake of time. Okay, the next section you're going to work with is perhaps one of the trickiest parts, and that's learning how to mix your own skin tones. Okay, so clean up my brush here. You're going to mix two skin tones. You're going to mix a light shade of your skin tone, and you're going to mix a darker shade. I've given you the colors here that I recommend you use. And I like to use my palette knife when I'm mixing this. Make sure it's clean. My palette knife is not very clean. So I'm going to scoop up a little bit of yellow ochre, which is this color right here. Okay? So I'm going to scoop up a little chunk of that. And let's mix it right here. Okay, so I'm going to use some cadmium red, which is this red right here. Actually, I don't think I need quite that much. Okay, get this nice reddish orange through here. And then I'm going to add little bits of cobalt blue to it to give it a little purple color. Now there's lots of different recipes to make different skin colors, skin tones, and everybody's skin tone is a little bit different. If you have darker skin, if you're more darker complexion, then you're not going to add a lot of white to this mixture here. Perhaps a little bit more red. If you have a paler complexion, then we're just going to add lots more white to our mixture here. Okay, so this is how we're going to mix it. Now a good way to test to see how you're doing is to actually compare it to your skin. Okay, so I need to add some more blue to it. It's still much too orange. Just remember, blue is the complement to orange. So anytime you add blue to an orange color, it's going to reduce its intensity. Okay, now to see, now obviously my skin is not that dark. So to kind of see if I'm on the right track, what I'm going to do is just take a little bit of white and off to the side here, mix this color with a little bit of white. And I get a better idea how close I am to mixing my actual skin color. I think I'm pretty close. It feels like I'm pretty close here. So, now you're probably not going to get it this quick as I did. I've mixed lots of skin tones, so I kind of have a feel for how much I need to add. So you may struggle with this part a little bit, but you can see that I got pretty close now. If I hold it next to my hand here, it's pretty close. Okay, I've got the value pretty close. It's still a little bit on the yellow side. The camera is making this a lot more yellow than it actually is, which is really kind of interesting. But so if that's the case though, if it's too yellow, then what do I need to add? Well, what's the complement of yellow? Purple. Okay, so in this case, it's going to be a little bit more blue. So I'm going to scoop this up and set it to the side here. So I'm going to add just a little bit more blue. and red back to this mixture here, so I can take away some of that yellow that it seems to be too strong with. When you're mixing paint, I always mix a lot more paint than I think I'm going to use. Okay? And this will make sense, especially for this part of the assignment here, is if you are, if it takes you 20 minutes to mix this, which some students take that long to get it, then and you run out of paint, guess what? You have to start all over again. Not only remixing the paint, and if you can't get an exact match to the paint you were trying to get, then you have to repaint everything as well. So always get in the habit of mixing much more paint than what you think you're going to use. Okay? Because I'd rather you have some extra than to run out and have to mix it all over again. Okay? So mix lots, especially if you know you're going to use a lot of paint. Okay? So that's pretty close there. If I can see, this would be like the shadows on my skin. Okay? So if I were to compare it to some shadow part, it's hard to see on this camera with the light coming straight down. But this would be like a good shadow color. And I can always test to see where I'm at here by adding some white to it. So I'm going to take a little scoop of this, add a good chunk of white to it to lighten it up. So I get a light shade and a dark shade. So I'm going to paint this in, because you notice you have two boxes there. One for your lighter skin tone and one for your darker skin tone. Oops, I got a little bit of blue in there, but I think that's actually a good thing. Okay, so I can mix. Now that's a little too light to actually match my skin, but it's a pretty close skin tone match. There, I can mix a little bit more in there. Okay, so when I'm done, I've got the two colors mixed so that they match. I'm going to paint these two squares in. One's going to be a light tone, one's going to be a dark tone, okay? Most students paint them the same, so I want to see a lighter tone and a darker tone, a clear separation between the two, okay? This last section over here, that's where this little color swatch that you were supposed to pick up, you're going to use, okay? This color you are going to match with using these paints here, and paint the square in so it's as close as a match as you can possibly get. If I hold the paint swatch next to it, I should see that they are exactly the same, both value, hue, and intensity. Okay, so that may take you a little bit of time as well to do that. So, but anyway, that's what you're going to do. When you're done, you're going to staple it together, or when you photograph your work, you're going to hold this next to it so I can see that there's a clear match. Okay, the part down here is where it's going to get really fun, because not only are you going to experiment with different colors, but you're also going to experiment or learn about these 4 different color schemes. Okay, so on the video, I talked a little bit about the 4 different color schemes, and you see this on your notes here as well, that I've got 6 different color schemes listed here. The 4 that we're going to focus on are complementary, analogous, triadic, and monochromatic. Okay, so based on the video, you should already know the definition of those. So on the assignment here, you are going to paint each of these areas following that specific complementary color scheme and analogous, monochromatic, and triadic. Okay, so what I mean is, in this area here, and it can get a little confusing, in this area here, defined by this box here, you're going to paint these shapes in using only one set of complementary colors. Okay, you are not going to do all the sets of complementary colors, because that's not the color scheme. A color scheme is one that limits itself to just one set of colors, and in this case we're going to pick the colors that we want. So let's say, for example, fix my mic here, for example, we pick one set of, let's go back to the color wheel, let's say green and red. Okay, so that means I am going to paint all of these shapes in this area here using only different shades of greens and reds. But the catch is, you can't just use these colors here. Everything has to be mixed. Okay, and they have to be blended and shaded together. Okay, so for example, I'm going to take, let's start out, And there's no rule of how you have to paint what. You can paint them whatever shape they want to as long as it fits that specific color scheme. So let's say I'm going to start off here with this green. So again, if I pick green, then I have to pick red. But you don't have to limit yourself to only one shade of green and one shade of red. I want to see you mixing lots of different colors together. Okay, so let's pick up some of this darker green here. Let's go a little bit darker. So I'm going to paint this whole area here in with this green. So, and again, it's a color that I mixed. I didn't use it straight out of the what I gave you. And then let's make this half here go lighter, but let's make it lighter with using white. So I'm going to get a little bit of white on my brush and paint this section here in with white. And the green that's already on my brush, and so we get this really light green. And I'm going to clean off my brush, and then let's blend this in so it looks really cool. Whoops, sorry, that was really echoey. So then I'm going to kind of blend this back and forth so I get this cool transition from a light green into this dark green, and we'll do the same thing over here. Okay, so it goes from a light green to a dark green. Let's play around with some other colors. Let's get some of this toxic green in here so you can see what that looks like. And I'm going to mix it with a little bit of white. You can see just how minty it looks. It kind of looks like, it just looks so minty to me. And let's have it go to, like, put in some of this darker green on this side over here. It's not all one flat color. So this is not a coloring book page. I do not want you to just color in each shape, just one solid color. Each shape needs to be blended, have shading in it, do something interesting. So I've got some greens put in there. Let's put in some reds. Let's play around with some of these reds. So, and again, it can be all different shades of reds. You can even put in like a red orange in there if I want to. Let's take some of this red and mix one of these browns in here, like this burnt sienna right here. So we get this nice dark, deep red. And let's paint maybe the background here with this color. And let's add some white to it too to lighten it up. So it goes from this dark red to this lighter red. Okay, now I'm going to clean off my brush and then blend these together. Okay, so now it goes from light to dark. Let's pick this other red here. Let's pick the alizarin crimson and just add some white to it so you can see what that looks like. The alizarin crimson is a really good red. But it's known as a cool red. It's a little bit on the blue side. So put some of that red in there, and let's pick up some of this darker and blend those two in together. And blend that together like that. So it gets light to dark, and it's a blended color. Okay, so and you're going to do that for all of these pictures here. So that's as much